Welcome to a special edition of the Darden Admissions Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Jingjing Li. Jingjing is one of the directors of the MS in Business Analytics program here at the University of Virginia, a partner program between the Darden School of Business and the McIntyre School of Commerce, and she is also a member of the faculty at McIntyre. I recently caught up with Jingjing to talk about the MSBA program, as well as how things are going in Module 4. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. As always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Jingjing Li. Jingjing, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to talk with you. How's everything going? How are you doing?
It's good. I just busy with my AI research and AI teaching, so my life is surrounded by AI.
That sounds like you.
Mhm.
Knowing what I know about you, I'm not surprised to hear you're surrounded by AI. And a busy module for you right now. It's Mod 4 for the MSBA students. How's everything going?
Yeah, it's good. I'm very excited about the Mod 4 project, which students going to present tomorrow morning. So I'm still helping students to answer some questions to polish their slides and presentations, but I'm very excited to see their presentations tomorrow.
That's excellent. I know that's always an exciting time. And this module has the most sort of AI content in it too. I know that's been exciting for the students. So before we get into Mod 4 and talking more about this module that the students are in right now, let's just talk a little bit more about you. Some folks may not have heard your prior podcast episode. So I want to give a little bit of space here to talk about you and your background. So tell us more about you.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Jingjing Li. I'm the NSM Alumni Associate Professor of IT and Innovation at the McIntyre School of Commerce. I'm also the Associate Director for Center for Business Analytics at McIntyre. And along with Raj Darden, I serve as the Academic Co-Director of the MSBA program. So within the program, I'm also the Mod 4 coordinator. So Mod 4 is about AI and digital transformation.
And what got you interested in leading the MSBA program, Jingjing? What attracted you to this leadership role?
Yeah, so I think it's first is my background, right? Ever since my first year of PhD programs, I've been always focused on big data, analytics, and AI. At that time, we don't call it AI, we call it natural language processing or text mining. And then after I graduated from the PhD program, I had the opportunity to become a scientist at Microsoft Research when I can develop large-scale machine learning and AI applications for a big corporation with many products, such as Xbox One, Bing search engine, and a Windows Phone. So I think my background naturally lead me into this subject matter, which is analytics and AI. And then in terms of the leadership, after I got tenure and I start to have some soul searching, say, in the next decades, multiple decades, where should I put my energy into, right? Obviously, I will continue with my teaching and research, but then suddenly I have more choices. So where can I do? I can work on my own business or I can work internally as a leaders. And because I have been teaching at the MSBA program ever since its first year, 2018. So I have a very strong attachment to this program. I think the program is doing fascinating things, and our students are highly sought after in the job market. So therefore, I was thinking that how can I bridge my subject matter expertise into the leadership or shaping or reshaping the program to make it more adaptive, more future proof. So that's why I chose to be the leader of this program after I got tenure.
And I know this is a curriculum that you're constantly looking at, thinking about how to make sure it's current and bring it up to speed with everything that's happening. It's always one of the tricky things with the MS Business Analytics program is that there's always new tools, new technologies, things are changing very rapidly in industry. How do you stay current? How does that happen?
Yeah, staying current with AI in this era is very hard. And I have to admit that I sacrifice a lot of my personal time. Sometimes when I'm trying to build a agentic workflow to automate some part of my work or research. So I just got very attached to that. I stay up very late and try different tools. Another thing is that I was invited to many presentations at the universities or companies, and I also frequently attend AI themed conferences, no matter it is in business or engineering or computer science or even healthcare. Not only academic conferences, but also practitioner conferences. So last year I counted, I probably attended 12 conferences or presentations. So it basically means every month I will travel at least one time, not to mention there are a lot of internal invitation at the UVA. But essentially, that's how I stay updated. I think it's just working hard, putting in the time, socialize your ideas, or get connected with diverse communities, no matter it's a practitioners or academic communities. And that's how and I'm very open, like I'm all ears, and can see a lot of diverse perspectives coming in at me, and that gave me an opportunity to form my own mental model and framework.
Well, how are things going with the MSBA program? I know just a couple weeks ago we had an alumni reception where we had current students there, alumni celebrating sort of the program and milestone for the students being in Module 4.
Mhm.
How are things going?
Yeah, we are in a very exciting and rapidly moving moment. So last summer, we held a full faculty retreat with alumni and instructional designers to discuss together where should we improve or change our curriculum, right? And how should we build a AI ready task force or workforce, I mean, for our students, right? And then we also did alumni survey across the 7 cohorts earlier this year. And then we found that 76% of them told us that Gen AI is their absolute top strategic priority. And then 54% of them are using it on a daily basis. It becomes the integral part of their workflow. So by doing those kind of discussions within our community, those kind of data give us confidence to move more aggressively. So one biggest tangible change is a brand new course. So we introduced this course called Digital Transformation with Agentic AI, taught by Professor Ryan Wright, and which is sitting inside of the Mod 4. So tomorrow I will got to see how the people's students takeaways from this course and how they will integrate this course into their final project. And then, so for that course, not only we talk about the AI fluency, such as what is AI agent, foundational model, agentic workflows. We also talk about how to facilitate change management, how to convince the leaders or the employees that this particular AI project is necessary, and how to do step by step to make sure the AI initiatives align with the organizational objectives, right? So a lot of interesting discussions. And the last month, we hosted a panel called Inside the AI Shift. So this panel invited our like two top AI voices in our program, but of course we have many other AI professors in our program. Due to the time constraint, they cannot come in. But we have Raj Venkatesan, my co-director, and Ryan Wright to be the panelist. So Ryan Wright happened also be the director of AI research at UVA. So we basically asked them their opinion about like how this AI shift will change the future of work or will change UVA and the Virginia government. So this panel was open to students and alumni. And I can tell you that it was a packed room. And then students have a lot of good questions. and followed by our alumni mixer. So that's a very nice moment. Like we got stimulated by those fresh perspectives. And I heard a lot of people discuss these AI trends during the alumni mixer while they are raising the glasses, right? That's the best combination of fun and learning. So I think again, just want to say that a lot of exciting initiatives. Oh, I want to add one more thing is that one of the signature courses at the UVA MSBA is that we have a global immersion courses. It has two sections. One is domestic immersion. This year, we chose 5 companies from Washington D.C. area, right? Another is a global immersion. Is this year we chose Finland and Estonia. So we actually introduced AI theme into this global course. We asked students to evaluate or assess the companies they visited using this Gartner AI maturity framework, covering high level from AI strategy to low level like data engineering or data infrastructure or technical stack, right? And I think we just finished the DC track. From my conversation with students, they were fascinated by the heterogeneity across just the 5 companies in terms of how they are, where they are in these 7, 8 dimensions of AI maturity. So basically, our conclusion is that nobody knows how to do it. Everybody have their own way to do that, depending on their history, depending on their current resources. So it's kind of interesting because it's open-ended. Everybody's in a learning and exploration phase.
Such an interesting and ambiguous time, right? If everybody's just exploring, kind of learning, no one quite knows where it's going to land. And
Mhm.
it feels like there's also a lot of conversations in the news about AI, right? It's very capital intensive. It requires a lot of energy and water, these kinds of things. There's also a national security element to it, and you have this race between nations. What do you make of all these conversations? This sort of job displacement, sort of the human impact to it. How
Mhm.
do you think about all of this multifaceted conversation around AI?
Yeah, I would say for every conversation, I always to see two sides. So let's take a job as an example. On the one hand, a lot of people are worried that AI going to replace the jobs. And then it's going to lead to massive layoffs and job loss. And that's going to lead to some kind of instability of the society. On the other hand, I also heard that AI actually will transform or will attract a lot of money into the manufacturing industry, right? So just like what you said, the AI requires a huge capital, energy, infrastructure, right? Manufacturing, chip makers, right? And if you saw those stock prices of those hardware industry, you will know that because I mean, on the one hand, AI can do a lot, but without this basic infrastructure, AI cannot come into existence. So basically, that will kind of revive many of the industries that we kind of maybe not put a spotlight on because in the past 1 or 2 decades, we focus so much on the internet, so much on the software industry, so much on the knowledge workers. So I feel like AI will create even more opportunities in other industries. And in terms of the knowledge workers, right, that's what the people worried about. And I would say that, I mean, before we have AI, many of our job probably we put a lot of time on this nitty gritty kind of a low level repetitive works, right? To the point that we cannot allocate our brain or capability to second order solutions, high level thinking, creative workflows. Right. So I think AI will replace this structured repetitive work. And so then we are at the crossroad. If you're thinking that, okay, I'm only the person, I'm the one, I can only do this structured work, yes, your job gonna be replaced. But if you say, what if with this time freed up, I allocate my energy to this more creative, innovative component of my task, no matter is a proactive or reactive, I redefine my work my value and my contribution to the society. And I would say that actually your value will increase. You're going to get paid more. You will have a more value to the organization. So I think at the end of the day, AI is just a tool, is a technical phenomenon. How will AI impact our lives? Actually, we have to say, humans have say, organizations have say. It's all depending at the end of the day, depending on your individual choices. Do you want to live in the past or do you want to live in the future? So I just use automobile revolution as an example. Do you still want to ride the horse or you want to learn how to drive the car? It's on your hands. You have to decide. We cannot answer that for you. And just like nobody knows the answer, but I would say that if you can learn these new roles, new jobs quickly, and it is also an interesting moment that we can disrupt the conventional structure. Right. So I would say at this moment, no matter you're a small company or big companies, you are at the same starting line in terms of the race because whoever won will be those people who mastered AI very well. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of capital, you have a lot of investment. If your conversion rate is low, the play field will be equalized.
A lot to consider there. I think also probably what stirs people up in this conversation is the way it might have been pitched originally by some of the companies that are really at the center of this industry. Like there's a non-negligible chance it could destroy the world, for example. These are quotes that were mentioned at the time. Also, the sort of specter of connecting this to, say, like the Manhattan Project, which obviously has people have learned. So Oppenheimer knew about that obviously before, but like that's a very sort of interesting sort of parallel to draw, and I think it gets people's attention in a very sort of vivid way.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say the difference here is that before, so let's say when we have automobile to replace horses, and we probably have a longer time to really assimilate that transformation. But for AI, the time is limited. Think about in the past 3 years, how fast has AI developed? Initially, it's just a large language model, and they can converse with you, maybe write the cover letter for you, write the emails for you, and then quickly now it become a AI agent, right? And not only it can say something, it can also leverage the tools or APIs to do this, right? If you don't use it well, it can wipe out your entire laptop's data within a second, right? So I think like the time for us to react, adapt is actually shorter than the previous revolutions. So that is why, like, although I have a very, very busy life personally and professionally, I chose to get exposure. I chose to work overtime because I know that if I don't catch up, then I will be quickly left out in terms of my fluency in AI.
There's a lot to consider there, Jingjing, and we could probably talk about AI for the next 2 hours. However, I wanna make sure we have some time to talk about Module 4 in the MSBA program. So tell us a little bit more about what Module 4 is all about.
Yeah. So module four is the theme is AI and the transformation, right? So what we're trying to do is when you look at the MSBA programs, right, the first three modules is really pave the foundation for students to build analytics models, to understand how to connect the business problems into analytics solutions. And module four, we really introduced this advanced topic of AI. First of all, instead of just teaching basic analytics, we introduce large language models, transformer models, so that students understand what are the backbone of this AI phenomenon. And second, we also want students to understand that in many situations, having a project or to drive a business value is not just a building model. You need to have end-to-end product thinking, design thinking. So we introduce this course, prototype and product management, so that students understand It's not just about the technologies, it's about how to get the requirements, understand the needs, translate the problems into technical needs. And finally, you need to have a very good way to manage your thought process, your action plan. And then another thing we want to remind the student that is that many times we give you the data set, Excel or CSV files, and you work on that. But in the organization, you don't have that luxury. Your data is scattered across the organizations, and some of them, or I would say many of them, you can't even use Excel to open it. It's too large for you to open. They are too large to reside in one computer. So therefore, what are the data infrastructure that supports the AI technology? So this not only SQL, NoSQL, or non-relational technologies has been there ever since the internet bubble, right? And it has gone through the similar phases like AI. Initially, people don't know which data management technology going to win. And then after 1 to 2 decades, we kind of stabilize into a set of solutions. And we want the students to understand that it's not just the codes, it's actually the data infrastructure. And finally, we have this very interesting new courses that is like agentic AI and organizational change. And we have to admit that agentic AI or the generative AI are very different from the prior analytics or AI solutions, let's say predictive AI, because generative AI is stochastic, non-deterministic. Nobody knows when or how it's gonna fail, right? So therefore, we actually have an extra layer of hurdle to entice the organizations to adopt. So therefore, the change management will be very, very important and critical. Another thing is that people's reactions, every time when we talk about AI, you always say polarized reactions, AI anxiety or AI fascinating, right? So essentially, we talk about, first of all, we need to understand what is agentic AI. Then we need to know how to facilitate the organizational change. And we also need to be future proof. So students are asked to build a roadmap for agentic AI transformation for the company they are doing a project on. So finally, we have this Mod 4 project that integrate those 4 courses from the hardcore technology, product management, data infrastructure to digital transformation into one project. Students working on a healthcare project, and the client is FDA. Students trying to build an AI product to identify adverse drug reactions earlier on, quicker than the existing FDA workflow by bringing those 4 courses together.
That's very cool. How did you come up with that project idea for the deliverable? I mean, one of the nice things about the MSBA program, and I think real hallmark of the program, is this sort of applied learning, right? You project-based curriculum, you have case discussions, all these kinds of things. It's always learning through application. Each module culminates in a project. You do that as part of a team, and there's a presentation to where we began our conversation, students preparing for their presentations tomorrow. How'd you come up with that as the project for Module 4?
Yeah. So I think that project is actually coming from one of my publications in 2019, published at Information Systems Research. So in that project, I worked on identify adverse events, not only from the healthcare domain, but also from the manufacturer domain, right? Using the voice of customer data. So the idea will be anytime when this crisis anomaly happens, if you only rely on traditional channels. So in this case, adverse reaction, traditional channel is that we let the doctors and the patient to self-report to FDA by filling out a long form, right? But if you only rely on that, you won't get the timeliness, right? Because as you can see, doctors and health professionals are work around the clock, right? They probably don't have time to file their own tax return. How can you expect them to file a long, like a tax return form? I think they have a certain numbers, very similar to like a federal form, right? To them. So therefore, we need to think about what are other data sources can complement the speed, right, concern. So we invented this concept called a voice of customers, right? When patient encounter adverse drug reactions, so let's say I just happens to have problems with my heart after I taking this medicine, they probably first voice the concerns on social medias or some health forums like Reddit or subreddits. They voice the concerns. Usually they are fast and because they try to seek help and or they try to help each other. So therefore, that project is to use the AI models to extract the signals from multiple data sources. And we found that on average, we can identify adverse drug reactions 18 months earlier than the FDA's traditional channel. So with that research experiences, we bring this research project into a course project, the module project. I think what's kind of a standard, kind of a typical transfer is that the rigor in terms of AI model development. But we realize that actually there are more layers. So that's why we're adding the product management, we're adding the data infrastructure and the digital transformation into this project to make it a more real world, realistic, right? So because there's those, it's not just a model, a code itself.
That is a very full module. Students are
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot, and obviously it's the fourth of fifth of five modules. So pretty sophisticated by the time they get there. What kind of feedback do you get from students as they go through this module? I know the project's been the same, the deliverables been the same for a few years now. AI has been very forward in this module for a few years now. What kind of feedback do you get from students about the module?
Yeah, so I think the first feedback is not about the how difficult the model is to develop. I think the common reaction is that how ambiguous this project is, right? So, because in the first three modules, students are very accustomed to say, "Oh, professor defined a problem for me. I was given a data set. I spend most of my time exploring the data set. I come up with the analysis visualization I put together into a presentation. For this module, I told them that you define your own problem. So for example, you can choose your client. You can choose FDA as your client, and then you develop an AI product to streamline the ADR. Or you can choose doctors as your client to help them quickly report the ADI problems they encountered when they interact with patients. You can develop AI product for nurses or patients. So essentially, some students are also thinking about for insurance companies, right? to how to. So essentially, at the very beginning, it's totally open ended, and then after that, I say if you are chose one client, so first of all, never choose multiple client. That's too ambitious. Once you stick to one client, try to reach out within your social circle to conduct an interview, right? So for example, most of students chose FDA because it's most directly solve their problem. FDA often the case hire healthcare professionals as the evaluator for these reported ADR forms, right? So for example, they can hire your doctor to be the evaluator to assess the severity of the reported reactions. So therefore, students will find some doctors within their social circle. It's very interesting. We found that once you have a team size of 4 to 5, you guarantee to find one friend or relative who are a doctor. Some people, they say, I'm the health professional myself, right? So they have to do the interview and figure out the scope, their challenges, and based on that, they develop a prototype, an interface, clickable interface to navigate the AI product thought process, right? So I think initially students say like, I don't feel comfortable, right? I'd rather you give me the answer. And even though they figure out the client and they figure out the prototype, they don't know how to integrate the AI models or data infrastructure as well as change management into that framework. because previously they're always thinking about one thing, develop a model, write the analysis, which neglect the fabric or context surrounding this, right? So sometimes it's not just like your model is not accurate. It basically you just cannot find the people who endorse the solution. They just don't like it, no matter is it good or not. Like how do you manage that relationships? How can you pitch a very nice message so that even the leaders who are less AI fluent can appreciate and understand, can tolerate the risk with you together, because AI projects have inherent risk due to generic non-deterministic nature, right? And the students initially they didn't get that. Say like, I feel like a product management is so foreign to AI. Like, how can I integrate? And I think even maybe at the middle of the module, they still figure out. And then I told them that there's no textbook to tell you how to figure out ambiguity, how to integrate different components. That's the beauty of building a real AI product. If there's a textbook, you don't have your unique value. Everybody can do it, right? So essentially, I'm trying to reposition their anxiety into an opportunity. I say that I know it's hard, but if you can nail it, pull it off at least once, you are ahead of 99% of people in this world, right? So, and another thing I say, experiential learning, right? And you don't have to feel certainty before you do anything. You just go ahead and do it. By learning, you can notice that, oh, this is new way to think about this problem. I made a mistake in the prior round. Can I fix that? So usually I feel like the epiphany moment close to the final presentation, like when they finally forced to be forced sometimes, right? Sometimes they have to put all the content into one slide when they're working on adjusting the order of slide 1, slide 3, and suddenly they get it. Oh, that's how I integrate everything into this project. So I feel like ambiguity is the number one concern students voiced to me, but also is a number one takeaway they get out of this project. And so last month we went to Capital One. We have 4 alumni talk to our students, and they say that actually our real world project is exactly structured like the model project. A lot of ambiguity. You have to connect the dots, and then you don't know what you are doing unless you finally done it, right? So I think that is a common reaction. It's very interesting, and I would say it's very challenging as a model coordinator to really manage all of those. But I feel like because I have done it so many times, I know how it could be. So that's why usually the presentation day is a absolute highlight of this module.
Yeah, I love that. The presentation days are always great. It's wonderful seeing the students. So you can feel the nerves a little bit, seeing the students around, getting prepared. But also, they're so excited to finally be at that point. So much work. Like one of the things I've heard from students about the program, right? There's a learning curve, and most people do not come with background on these tools, technologies, a lot of the concepts that they're learning. So there's a learning curve. But a lot of the students will tell you that goes pretty quickly because they get really curious about what they're learning about. They get really excited about what they're learning about. And now they just find themselves spending more time just engaging with this stuff because they find it, one, very engaging and very interesting. I'm sure
Mhm.
that comes up in Module 4.
Yeah. Mhm.
So Jingjing, what are you working on right now from a research standpoint? Anything you would want to share? I'm sure you're doing something related to AI.
Yeah, so my research now is focused on AI in 2 pathways. One is the development and design of AI. So those we call that computational design science approach. So essentially, I take a business societal problems, identify the needs, identify some design principles, and I create my own AI framework or AI agent or architecture to solve that problem, right? One canonic example is recently I have this paper published at MPJ Digital Medicine is a Nature portfolio journal, a very highly regarded journal. So for this project, we use AI to tackle the mental health counseling. right? And then the challenges are we just don't have that many psychiatrists, right, to conduct the patient intake. Usually in the patient intake, they have a practice called differential diagnosis because there are more than 150 mental health diseases in the world, and many of them have overlapping symptoms like lack of sleep. Usually, this differential diagnosis is gonna take 1 to 3 hours. And then, but because of the shortage of psychiatrists, patients are lining up. They have to wait for months. So I collaborate with the University of Alberta, and we say like, can we actually build an AI agentic framework to help with this patient intake? From that, we interviewed a lot of psychiatrists. We have psychiatrists as a co-authors, and we're trying to identify the diagnosis principles here. First of all, we noticed that there is a very vertical knowledge domain, right? They have a lengthy training protocols. The second is that when the doctor do this intake, they have to pay attention to what they say. Not only like what they say is clinically correct, but also whether they show empathy and warmth to patient. So based on this principle, we develop a multi-agent architecture, and then we benchmark with 3 mental health diseases. We found that our performance is approaching human clinicians, right? So that's one area. Another area is the managerial implications of Gen AI deployment. Again, I use a healthcare project. So UVA Health last year, they started to deploy this ambient listening technology called a Microsoft Copilot DAX. What it does is that is an app installed on a phone. So physicians, before they when they are enter into the exam room, talking to patients and trying to do diagnosis, before they have to talk to the patient and also hide behind the computer screen to type notes, right? And after they finish the exam, they have to write up the medical notes because they can only quickly type some keywords, but they have to write clinically accurate medical notes, not only for the patient, but also to document their service so that they can get paid or reimbursed. So what doctors found that this medical noting time is very long because they can only do that after they finish the whole day. So on any given day, doctors spend 8 to 9 hours seeing their patients, but then they can have a 20 to 50 notes they have to write. So they have to write it overtime after dinner. They call that pajama time, right? So they on average spend 1 to 2 hours write up the medical notes, because if they don't finish that, next day they have another 30 patients, right? Things just pile up. And people find that pajama time is one of the most critical drivers for burnout. So essentially, this ambient listening tool installed the app, they can ambiently listen to the conversation, and they integrate it into the electronic healthcare record system, such as Epic. So essentially, when the physician walk out of the exam room, the medical note is already generated by large language model sitting inside their EHR system. So what they need to do is that they probably edit. Actually, they use dictation, so they verbally edit. So essentially, for example, if you want to change the medical notes, instead of you working on the words or sentences, you talk to your phone one more time, say correct this and that, and then they're gonna regenerate a very clinical reasoning note. So my goal will be, first of all, try to understand how the physicians adopt this AI tool. It sounds like an amazing tool, but do we have a good way to roll out this tool at the hand of the physicians? How they react? Who like to adopt? Who doesn't? Right? How can we, and what are the true impact of this technology on their physician workflow? Do they truly reduce their pajama time, or do they actually increase extra burden, right? So we basically do qualitative research as well as quantitative research. So during the initial adoption, UVA House have Microsoft consultants come to UVA Charlottesville, and then they actually talk to the physicians who just got the license, give them a quick demo before they walk into the exam room, and then help them to craft or polish their notes after. So I was also there. So become the additional Microsoft consultant, and I help them. And also, because I'm a UVA employee, so I got invited into the exam room to see the conversation and see the note and do a quick interview with doctor, right? And I was sitting on every single meetings that make decisions about how to roll out this AI tool. The findings are fascinating. It's very, very interesting. So essentially, just to summarize, not only I'm focusing on developing the best AI tool, but I also focusing on how to put those AI tools in the right hands in the right way so that we minimize friction and improve, really add value to organizations.
That's a lot. So you are busy, Jingjing, for sure. A lot going on. I have one more question for you, and then we'll wrap up here. Um, and it doesn't have to be a long answer, but I imagine you've probably given it a lot of thought. What's your pitch for why the UVA MSBA program? If a prospective student was to ask you why this particular program, what would be your pitch to them?
My pitch to them is that in the AI era, not only you need to gain AI competency, but you also need to pay attention to the human qualities that cannot be replaced by AI. And more importantly, how to integrate your AI fluency with human qualities to make impacts in the organizations and society. By doing that, you actually need to build the cohort, build a network. So why UVA MSBA is very unique here. Not only we have the world-class faculty to build the cutting-edge AI curriculum in terms of building AI competency. We have two schools like Darden and McIntyre. So Darden use case-based learning. Pedagogically, I think that is the best way to actually build your creativity, critical thinking, judgment, right? Make decisions under uncertainty. So in the first two modules, we focus on these human qualities as well as pave the foundation for you. As far as I know, many other MSBA programs, they don't have these like a dual focus, right? Human quality using case-based learning as well as AI competency. And the more importantly, as I described for module 4, we focus on integration, meaningful integration. Every project we do is integration of multiple courses, right? And integration that is so hard to gain because we are wired to do certain type of things. But how can I do two things simultaneously good, right? And finally, I would say we have two world-class business schools. We have two career service networks, right? We have two alumni network, two corporate partner networks. So I have like a cute saying, say you got buy one get one free effect, right? And in the AI era, your connections will be especially more important because technical execution is so cheap. Writing a fabulous cover letter is so easy. Then if everybody is so good, which gonna give you a job? Referral gonna give you a job. Your connections, people know you as a person will give you the job. So essentially, it's actually a little bit counterintuitive. On the one hand, you need to be tech savvy. On the other hand, you actually need to step outside of your house. You need to socialize, crazily connected, and got a lot of ideas and build your social capital so that you gain advantage that other people who only focus on AI competency won't get. So essentially for UVA MSBA program, I think the pitch will be we have a dual focus for human qualities and AI competency. Second, we focus on integration, which is a rare capability to gain without experiential learning or project-based learning, and global immersion, right? By immersed into the companies. And the third is that we have a double networks for everything that connected to social capital. So that is the uniqueness of MSBA.
Jingjing, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure catching up with you, and good luck this weekend with the student presentations. I know that will be a lot of fun.
Thank you, Brett. It's always fun talking with you. It helped me to organize my thinking, right? So when I have so much information coming at me, I really need a designated time and a space to think through that. So I really like your question. So that made me have some deeper reflection that can help me to think about this program, how to strategically lead this program in the long run. Thank you, Brett.
And that was my conversation with Jingjing Li, one of the academic directors of the MS in Business Analytics program here at the University of Virginia. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.